If there's one thing that really divides people, it's the amount of information shown in film trailers. Integral to manufacturing expectation outside of star power and word of mouth, just how much you give away or otherwise use to entice an audience can lead to a double-edged sword of hype that many films completely fall on. Get it right, like the vast majority of Marvel movies, forgetting that twist in Iron Man 3 anyway, and we all enter and exit the theater full of satisfied good vibes. Money well spent, a worthwhile evening at the cinema, a reason to invest in future sequels, merchandise, the franchise overall, and anything in between. Get it wrong though, and you've got a mountain of bad PR to surmount. As we'll get to with some of the entries on this list, hell hath no fury like a fandom scorned. And whether it comes from a potential plot point or a movie that's supposed to deliver something we otherwise thought was coming, if that end product doesn't stick the landing, we'll all stand around, point, laugh, and then scream about it forevermore. I'm Scott from WhatCulture.com, and these are 9 movie characters that deserved better. Number 9, Saruman, Lord of the Rings trilogy. It's a testament to Peter Jackson's near immaculate Lord of the Rings trilogy that you don't actively realize Saruman's death was terribly handled until you start thinking about it. Despite being a major force of evil and conjurer of expensive set pieces in Fellowship of the Ring, alongside commanding an Uruk-hai army in Two Towers to the Battle of Helm's Deep, Return of the King's theatrical cut just doesn't feature him. Outside of a line from Gandalf that exclaims his power is no more, you actually have to journey back to Two Towers to realize his final scene is the one where he's left sitting inside the Tower of Orthanc. Heading into Return of the King's deleted scenes reveals Peter Jackson did shoot a death scene for Saruman where the White Wizard falls from the tower after being stabbed by Grima Wormtongue, only to be buried at the bottom of a nearby body of water. Peter Jackson noted that originally this was supposed to go at the close of Two Towers, only to hold it back for the opening of Return of the King, and then decide that it didn't work in terms of pacing for that movie overall. The result is the fate of one of Hollywood's most iconic villains almost being left completely open to interpretation. Number 8, Joe Brody, Godzilla. Okay, so was it just me who thought Bryan Cranston was going to be the main character in Gareth Edwards' Godzilla? I don't know what it is about Edwards, but he really hates delivering on obvious expectations. Just look to the airport fight, where the camera cuts away from Godzilla fighting the giant Muto, and we watch a child watch the fight instead. Back to Cranston though, and after a solid marketing campaign and a great acting performance at the beginning where character Joe Brody is distraught about the death of his wife, Cranston gets written out of the film before anything is really taken off. How? He falls off a walkway, is seen on a stretcher, and cocks it right there and then. No Brody vs. Godzilla, no more masterclass acting or anything approaching memorability outside of some awesome future visuals. Nothing. Even Bryan Cranston himself hated the idea, saying on a Nerdist podcast, the character dying at that time was a mistake. When I read it, I said, oh, page 50, this character, who is the emotional core, the center that was guiding the story up to that point, he dies? What a waste. And they kind of dealt with it poorly. Amen to that. Number 7, John Ray Arnold, Jurassic Park. Like a writer suddenly realizing the final act is in full flow and they've forgotten to tie off a loose end, Samuel L. Jackson's Ray Arnold goes from the hold on to your butts guy to just a severed limb you can completely miss in the corner of a frame. After taking off to reboot Jurassic Park as a last-ditch effort to restore security, many thought we might see a showdown between him and the infuriating Nedry, who Arnold had been warring with the entire movie, or at least Jackson yelling his guts out as various velociraptors devoured him. Though the final cut made his dangling arm look like an afterthought, in reality Sam Jackson was set to fly to Hawaii to film a proper, more visceral death scene, only for a ferocious hurricane to destroy the movie's set. The time it would have taken to rebuild then didn't fit with everyone's schedules, so Spielberg and co just had to make do. Number 6, Sarah Connor, Terminator 3, Rise of the Machine. Onto some real Hollywood legend territory, and Sarah Connor, one of the most badass characters in cinema history, was unceremoniously written out of the franchise in the weakest way between Terminator 2 and 3. Yep, despite Linda Hamilton turning herself into an absolute tank and being just as powerfully memorable as Arnie in T2, Rise of the Machine says that she died after a 3-year battle with cancer and was then cremated. In a sure, cool, I guess kind of twist, her will stipulated that her coffin should be filled with weapons just in case the Terminators return, giving us that one cool scene from an otherwise god-awful Terminator 3. Thankfully, though I have zero faith it'll actually be any good, Terminator 6 is seeing Hamilton return as Sarah once again, so maybe there's a way to make good on the character's finality after all. Number 5, Luke Skywalker, Star Wars The Last Jedi. Imagine a world where we all agreed on The Last Jedi. Oh well. So, Luke Skywalker, man who convinced the biggest space Nazi in the galaxy, Darth Vader, that actually he shouldn't be a big old space Nazi, and was successful at this, has lost faith in his fellow humans, resigning himself to a life of hermitry on an island somewhere other than a very obvious place. I mean, okay, it has potential, ignoring the fact that he created a map to find him in The Force Awakens, but okay, where are we gonna go from here? Well, providing you can get over the fact he just tosses an entire movie's plot point over his shoulder within the first minute, Luke goes from alien boob-fondling weirdo to potential child murderer to turning up to the movie's big final fight only to actually psych everyone out, disappear, and die on a rock for no reason. Oh, but it was all to subvert expectations. Oh, I see. No, I'm not even remotely salty every time I have to write about this. No. I mean, even Mark Hamill hated everything he had to do, but Number 4, Chief Brody, Jaws the Revenge. Okay, back to something we can all agree on. Chief Brody, Mr. Gonna Need a Bigger Boat himself, is kind of the guy that conquered his fear of small island-sized sharks not once, but twice across both movies Roy Scheider appeared in. Come the time for Jaws the Revenge, possibly one of the most rushed and worst sequels ever made, centered on the idea that Jaws is actively hunting down Brody's family, Scheider understandably refused to return. The script was apparently put together in just 5 weeks, and one of the first priorities was addressing the obvious absence of Scheider. So what could any writer do under such harsh time constraints? Make the character suffer a heart attack, of course, Hollywood's instant course-correcting solution that fixes any contractual problem like it was nothing. The reason given to the audience as to the cause of the heart attack, though, it was a fear of sharks, just to twist the knife a little bit from behind the scenes. Number 3, Joker, Suicide Squad. Maybe we needed this, Maybe we needed something that was so overtly disastrous, so ludicrously try-hard, and so clearly gonna fail, it could only cauterize the wound left by Heath Ledger's tragic death and that phenomenal 2008 performance. Maybe the only way to move forward with another movie Joker performance was to destroy and rebuild. Maybe. On the other hand, maybe Joker could have just not been a big old goth gangster pimp like he was trying to channel Marilyn Manson's Tainted Love video, and we could have just enjoyed seeing the character again. Instead, from the costume to the damaged forehead tattoo to the honker line delivery, Jared Leto's Clown Prince was about as welcome as the dead fish he sent to fellow cast members to convince them he was getting in character. Number 2, John McClane, the Die Hard franchise. Let's sidestep the Christmas argument for now, as a bigger problem with the Die Hard movies, if you watch them all in a row, is just how much John and Holly McClane's relationship never gets any real payoff for the audience. In the first Die Hard, John is trying to reconcile his temper and duty with a wife who's more than happy to follow her career and leave him behind. By the time the credits roll, he's had a good old word with himself, saved her and her colleagues' lives, and the pair look to be getting back together. Roll credits. In Die Hard 2, everything is mostly hunky-dory, but Bonnie Bedelia's Holly is stuck in a plane circling the airport the whole movie takes part in, only popping up in short comedy relief scenes every 20 or so minutes. Roll credits once she's back down on the ground, as once again, we barely feel anything. In Die Hard 3, though, we open up on John being an alcoholic, as he and Holly had one argument and then didn't speak for over a year. The movie closes with him finally picking up the phone, and again, roll credits. Do you see the problem? In Die Hard 4, we discard the former movie's positive ending yet again, but at least this time the pair are properly divorced. Holly is only seen on a shot of her driver's license alongside daughter Lucy mentioning her, and then in Die Hard 5, it's the full-on Bruce Willis and Sam Worthington show. Seriously, watch these movies back. John McClane's real villain was a rotating team of writers all along. Number 1, David Dunn, Glass. Maybe the reason Bruce Willis currently sleepwalks through movies is because writers and directors seem to want to put him through hell regardless. In M. Night Shyamalan's Glass, the makeshift final part of a trilogy comprising 2000's Unbreakable and 2016's Split, we all expected further dissection of his moral compass, and how supernatural abilities play into a life of vigilante justice. Granted, the movie does open with some heartwarming shots of Dunn working with son Joseph, brilliantly played by returning after 18 years actor Spencer Clark, but that's literally it. David gets to slam a thug against a wall, rescue some teenagers within a few minutes, and then he gets imprisoned for the majority of the movie. He finally busts out and fights James McAvoy's The Horde in a pretty amateurish shoving contest, but then disappears into the movie's biggest twist as he's drowned in a puddle by someone off screen. Yes, one of the purest cinematic heroes we've ever seen, who doubles as one of the only actual characters M. Night Shyamalan has ever written, gets drowned face down in a puddle by an arm reaching in from out of frame. Though Shyamalan apparently worked tirelessly to get the movie off the ground, David Dunn's death felt like M. Night himself killing the character, so he'd never have to revisit this mythos ever again. Oh, and while we're here, let's talk about James McAvoy's Kevin Wendell Crumb. First up, his father also being on the same train as Dunn. That almost undoes the entire point of Unbreakable being about David's discovery as a one-off superhero grappling with how to live and what to do. Then there's the scene where Anna Taylor-Joy's Casey Cook succeeds in restoring the one personality the Horde had kept buried deep within, giving the Kevin character a pretty touching finale, but it's robbed away in an instant by Sarah Paulson's nondescript gang of goons who just shoot him. Within seconds, we see David Dunn get drowned, Kevin gets shot, and Mr. Glass bleed to death by falling over. I noted in my review for Glass that a bunch of plot points were going to annoy fans a lot, and if it weren't for the overall positive message of comic book fiction being a great real-world catalyst for doing good things, this cataclysmic ending would have ruined everything. Sadly, M. Night really is a first draft is enough kind of guy. And that's my list. Let me know down in the comments if there were any other movie characters that seemed to be going one way only to pivot the other way and disappoint everybody. Ivan Scott from WhatCulture.com, and I'll catch you soon.